it wasn't always thus in our country. So what happened, right? I mean, was it NAFTA? Like what brought us from a country that manufactured its own goods with pride to a country that buys everything from China?
Yeah, well, it was big government. It was taxes and regulations that made the U.S. uncompetitive relative to the rest of the world. And then it was going off the gold standard and going on a dollar standard where once the dollar was the reserve currency, the rest of the world needed dollars. And how did they get dollars? Well, they sold stuff to Americans. And so we basically outsourced our entire economy. And in the short run, we benefited because the cost of production was lower overseas than it was in the U.S., especially because American companies had to deal with high regulations, high taxes, labor unions, all sorts of other things that ran up the cost of production that foreigners didn't have. And of course, you know, a lot of the regulation, the labor laws, the environmental laws, I mean, these other countries didn't have to deal with that. And so they didn't have to bake the cost of complying with those regulations into their labor cost, into their price of their goods. And the wages were already, you know, much, much lower in the other countries. So Americans got a good deal. We traded our jobs for stuff, and we did that for decades. But, you know, we can't do it anymore because we now have so much debt, and wages around the world have increased to the point where there's not a big arbitrage left anymore between labor costs outside the U.S. and labor costs inside the United States. And foreigners don't want to, you know, play this game anymore. They have too many dollars. They have too many U.S. treasuries, and we're making that apparent by, you know, flexing our muscles with these sanctions. You know, I think that we've reached the end of the road here on this game. And, you know, when we experience the true consequences of what's happened, because, you know, we've been living on credit cards and borrowed money and imported goods, and we don't realize how drastically things are going to change for the worse when we can't rely on those things anymore. Those lifelines are going to be gone.
So compare us right now to China, because they've taken a very different tact. And I've heard you say the 20th century was ours and the 21st is theirs.
Yeah, and it's not that China is doing everything perfectly, far from it. And I don't think that the Chinese economy is anywhere near what our economy was, let's say, in the 19th century and early 20th century. We are much freer, or we were much freer back then than China is now. But unfortunately, in many ways, China is freer today than we are now, and that is the problem. And I'm talking about economic freedom, not necessarily political freedom, although I think we may be losing that now too. China is positioned itself much better because they have a far more productive workforce than America. You don't have armies of people dependent on government. You don't have people collecting Social Security and welfare. People are saving in China. They save a very substantial percent of what they produce, and they produce a lot. I mean, just go walk down the aisles of a Walmart and take a look at where everything is made. I mean, these are very productive people. They have the equipment, the capital, industrial capacity to produce, and that's what's important. You know, all we have is people that want to buy. But what good is, you know, wanting to buy something if you don't make anything? I'd rather have the factories and the ability to make stuff, because if you can make stuff, you can consume it. You can't consume what you don't make. So China actually is holding the cards, not America. I think they've built a far more viable economy than the one that we have. We have a bubble economy. And I think when the dollar crashes, the Chinese currency is going to rise dramatically. And as Americans see their standard of living collapse, the Chinese are going to see their standard of living surge. Because what's going to happen is all those goods that the Chinese used to make and send to America, they're not going to send them to America anymore. They're still going to make them. So what are they going to do with them? They're going to consume them themselves. And their lives will be a lot better when they have their stuff instead of our paper. And our lives are going to be a lot worse when we don't have their stuff and all we have is our paper.
How would you hedge against that? I mean, for individuals out there feeling scared now as a result of this discussion, what should they do? I mean, we can't control, I mean, yes, elect the right leaders, but I know you say no leaders are good. The politicians are not the answer. So what should individuals do?
Well, you mentioned yourself. I mean, Donald Trump campaigned on making America great again by revitalizing our manufacturing, and none of that happened. The trade deficits were higher when Trump left office than when he came in, even if you look at the trade deficit before COVID. So we were still continuing to, disintegrate as an industrial economy, even during the Trump years. So yes, the politicians aren't going to change it. Doesn't matter who you vote for. But what you do need to do is protect yourself. And that's what I've been doing myself for years. And I've been encouraging all of my clients to do the same thing. You've got to get out of US dollars. You've got to recognize that inflation is a tax.
Before we continue, help us clicking that YouTube like button and subscribe now to our channel. This shows the algorithm that you valued this information. And it helps us spread that message. Sharing is caring. And now, let's continue.
I have bad news for you. If you're not rich by now, you're screwed. And if you're in debt, you're even double screwed. How so, you might wonder? Well, the sad truth is that you're working your whole life to make someone else rich. The mega corporations, the banks, the politicians, everyone is getting richer. They get your money. And what is even worse, they get your time, they get your life. You are not even in a rat race. You're in a financial prison. But what could a solution for you look like? Honestly, I don't know, but I know what a solution for me would look like. It's very simple. I use whatever money I have and I multiply it with 1,000. This could make my life much easier and probably yours as well. If you have $1,000 available and multiply this with 1,000, I believe that this could solve some financial issue for the one or the other. Of course, if you're ugly, you would have to multiply it with much more than 1,000. My name is Marco Stan, and this is what I decided to do. I decided to 1000x my money. This is not a joke. I know what you may be thinking. What is this guy talking about? How should this work? This is not possible. Well, I made a detailed video where I laid out my plan. And some clever folks might even want to look at this plan and copy it and do exactly what I do. This is just a little hint on the side. You have two options. You leave, you forget what you have seen. You do whatever you're doing and you hope that somehow you get some other results. Good luck with that. Or you click the link below the video. You enter your email address because I'm not showing this to everybody. You at least watch my video on how I plan to 1000x my money. The choice is yours. Make the right choice. Join me. See what a different future you could have. See at least how I intend, how I plan to do the 1000x. So click on the link below, enter your email address, and I see you on the other side. Your Marco Stan.